how did your parents go in for sort of disciplining you and upbringing, in your upbringing? I mean, I read some stuff about that they were quite strict.
Well, my father's in the army. He's in the Jamaican army, and although he wasn't the disciplinarian of the family, but just with the nature of what he is, I would say we had a very strict upbringing. My mother was the one who would discipline me quite often. I suppose all young boys are naughty anyway, and I had two elder sisters who were as good as gold, so got theirs as well, I think. But
And your mother would use physical punishment?
oh yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say excessive because I do the same with my son. So and you know I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean at the time I would, but I mean looking back now I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm sure as a parent that
So how did she actually punish you? What did she actually do?
beat me, the belt or slap me or whatever.
And quite often?
Well, I was naughty quite often, so not only when I deserved it, which was quite often.
Did your mother used to be quite strict with you until you were quite old?
Yes. Well, they went back to Jamaica when I was 17, and up till then, because I remember when I first came to England, I used to, you know, go out with my friends that I met here, and we used to go to nightclubs when we were 14 and 15, and you know they'd stay out till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and like my mother would say, we'll be home at 12, you know, and they'll be out all night, and up till when I was 16.
What,
Going out, you know, she would say, well, come in at whatever time, 1, 2.
and what happened if you didn't?
Well, she was on the way down to the nightclub once. It was we're in Highgate, living in Highgate, and she said, be home at, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock came, and I was still in the nightclub, so I said, I better go. I told my friends, oh, I'm tired, I've got to go. Didn't want to say like my mother says, I've got to go. I mean, she'd kill me for telling this story. So I was walking home, and halfway up Highgate Hill, wherever it was, this car came towards me, and I recognized it was my mother. I mean, she was on her way down, and the thing is, she just had a dressing gown on. So even now, I wake up in cold sweat, having nightmares of her bursting into the nightclub, and me not being there. I mean, even if it was there, it doesn't matter, but, you know, saying, I told you to be home at 2 o'clock, and here you are, and she's got a dressing gown on. I wouldn't have been able to show my face again. So luckily, I threw myself in front of the car, so she either had to kill me or stop the car, and she stopped the car, and whacked me around the air a few times.
Do you think? I mean, it sounds quite intimidating. That I mean, it does sound quite sort of frightening, really.
Well, I think growing up is frightening as a kid. You know, no matter what you do, if it's a bit iffy and a bit dodgy, you're always expected to be told off or expected to be hit. So I can remember times, even when I haven't been beaten, that I thought, oh, I'm going to get it here.
Can you describe to me the feeling you get when you go past a player and when a run is beginning to emerge and you're beginning to open up the throttle?
Excitement until it comes to an end. Because, as you say, you get past the player and then all of a sudden and then someone tackles you and then you go, oh, I've been tackled. Or if no one tackles you, go on and on and on and it builds up to a climax and then something happens.
Would you say there's anything comparable in your life to the extreme satisfaction that you must get when you're on a run and you're beating players and you're really in full flow?
Yes.
And what would you say that is?
What is this channel for? I still can't tell you.
I think I can guess.
Well, there you go.
Given what you told me about your upbringing, that it was quite a strict upbringing and there were a lot of things you couldn't do. And this sounds like an area where you could be absolutely your own man, doing exactly what you wanted in the way that you wanted. This sounds like something you could do freely, spontaneously, and really enjoy and not be criticized or punished in any way for.
Well, it happened to be football. It could have been something else.
Sure.
You know, it could have been anything.
Sure.
And it may not necessarily be sport. It could have been music. It could have been, you know, and I think that everyone
Sure.
needs that release or whatever you call it, if that's what it is.
But do you see what I'm
I
do
see
what
what
I'm
you
saying?
mean. Yeah,
it sounds
really,
like it was an area of wonderful
yeah,
release for you. Yes.
possibly, but I haven't really looked at it that deeply because I don't think it's that important, really. Now I'm in control of my life, and I can do whatever I want, but I don't. If you talk about the football being my release from my upbringing where it was all controlled, my life now is my release because I can do whatever I want. But why don't I, if that was the case?
Well,
Why don't I just let rip in life as well?
Well, I think because you've internalized, taken inside yourself a lot of strong values from your parents and strong feelings of what's right and what's wrong and what you must and mustn't do.
But
And
wouldn't
that-
I have done that in the football as well and been a midfield player, very conscious, or a defender, with passing and just being?
And this
I would have taken that in as well, presumably.
is the interesting thing.
So I haven't taken it in. Well, obviously not in my football. I
You've al-
haven't.
well, I suspect what happened was that you found an area in which your parents valued you and permitted you a strong area of a strong measure of freedom, and it was an area where you were actually. I expect they were very proud of you, that your ability.
I used to play centre half when I was for 4 years when I first came to England, and I was very responsible then. Never used to dribble at all. Used to get the ball, and that's mainly because
And who encouraged you to become a dribbler then?
since I was young, I've always dribbled. But I think that this conscientiousness came into it then because I was played in a team, and everyone wanted to score the goals and run forward. And I think that I probably had the most discipline, so I was the one to say, "I'll stay back here." So that's how I became a centre half for 4 years.
And at that point, I suspect you were pretty identified with your father and with somebody who's a controlled, somebody who's a
Yeah,
responsible
I would
controller.
say so.
Can you remember at what point you were able to beat your father, to dribble round him?
I think I always had the ability to, as far back as I can remember, but I didn't actually start doing it because of the physical side of it, because he's bigger and faster, till I was maybe 13, 12, about 13, I would say.
So that's quite, but that must have been quite satisfying at that point.
I felt sorry for him actually, because yeah. I wouldn't say it was particularly satisfying, no. I wouldn't say so. It was when I did it against other people, but not so much against my father. Because, I've heard he played for Jamaica and everything, and here's this 13-year-old boy dribbling around him. So, I thought, well, maybe he's not as good as people say he was. Tony Woodcock, he was in the England team at the time. He made a very good run, and I took a few defenders away. But even at the time, you don't really know what's going on. It's not until I've actually watched the video and I've seen how many players I've beaten and put it in the net. So if you're asking me to go back to that day and say what happened, I really haven't got a clue. I was just, to be honest, I was looking for someone to pass to, but I couldn't see anyone to pass to, so I just decided to hang on to it as long as possible. Then I realised I was like 6 yards out from goal, so I just had to put it past the keeper.
Have you thought that having achieved such massive acclaim for that 1984 goal so early in your England career, that that's put some pressure on you, that is the standard that you're always measured by, and it's difficult for you not to take that on board?
Well, it has, but what are players supposed to do? I mean, what can you expect? I think that if you ask the player whether he'd like to go through his career not doing anything spectacular, but not getting any criticism because he's just been average, a good club, plays for his country, very steady player, not getting any criticism but not really getting any real praise, or to do something brilliant and expect to do that every week and not live up to it. And although I'm not saying that I would like to live on my 1984 goal, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
So what goes through your mind when you're not getting as much possession as you'd like, and you're feeling a bit outside it? How does it feel like in the European Championships? There
Well,
must have been
then
long periods when.
That's as you say, when you get the ball, all of a sudden you think, well, I've got to do something absolutely brilliant here because this is the first time I've got the ball and I'm not going to get it again for 10 minutes. And then you lose it or you try too hard, and then you think, oh, well, the next time I get it. So you get too intense, and you don't relax.
And could you say that that's, that suddenly there's an intense fear of failure that wouldn't normally be there?
Yeah, I would say so. But how do you get rid of it? I mean, if we knew that, I mean.
Do you think you're a very conscientious sort of person who's very self-critical, who, is somebody who?
I think that most players are.
But do you think you might be a bit more so than others?
Possibly. I don't know how self-critical other players are, but I would say I'm very self-critical.